Hi, I'm Neil at Italia Autos. Today I'm going to be giving you a buyer's guide on the Alfa Romeo GT. I am just going to go over some of the problems that I see regularly on these cars, just to give you an idea of what things to look out for when you are going to purchase one of these vehicles. They do not all suffer from all these faults, so don't get put off by this. I'm just going to give you a guide of things to look out for on these cars. So please enjoy it. Thank you. Okay, continuing with the underside of the GT, the first thing we come to is the suspension. We do suffer on these with the shockers rotting from inside out, and you'll find that the lower spring pan will rust away and then separate from the shocker, causing it to land on the tyre and burst your tyre or rub on your tyre. As you can see, this one's quite bad. It looks as though it is about to go, so I wouldn't be driving this one too far. You also suffer with these rear arms wearing out. Mainly bushes on the either end here, and you can also really suffer with removing this big long bolt. If I can get the light right in here, there we go. See this big long bolt along here? That does tend to rust in there quite a bit, making it very difficult for the bolt to come out, and also these bushes can sort of rust and weld themselves to the bolt itself, so you can require new bolts from removing those, but I have done another video showing you how to do that with a few tips and tricks. Exhaust, yeah, same with any car. They do rust and tend to get holes somewhere, but nothing overly serious. Brake calipers on the rear can sometimes seize, especially in the winter, but again, it's not a big problem. It's not an expensive repair. Again, on the underside, they do suffer with rust in certain places, mainly along the floor pan, along the back seats. This is actually really good for the age of the car and the amount that's actually wrong with it. But they do start to rust around here and develop holes. Some I've seen where it starts rusting along the sides of the frame here. But this one is actually pretty good. The exhaust can rust here as well. As you can see, this one's gone quite bad. And the mounts can break off, meaning that would be an MOT failure. But again, quite simple to repair and not expensive. The exhaust flexi pipes can sometimes develop a fault, and they can also rust away at the front here, giving you a blow there, as well as once that wears out there, that will blow as well from there. But again, they're not expensive to replace. They're about £72 for a front exhaust flexi pipe. The front subframes are prone to rusting as well, and they are around £100–150 depending on the condition of a used one on there. The drive shafts on the GT's diesels can be quite common for failing. They've got a tripod type design, which the bearings inside them can fail. They are relatively cheap to get on eBay, but you do need to get good quality ones. Other problems can be lower wishbones and upper wishbones. They don't tend to last very long in these Alfas. You do need to buy better quality ones. I would definitely stay away from the eBay cheap versions, because they will not last you more than a few hours of driving. A little bit further forwards now, the oil coolers. Let's try and get some better light up here. As you can see, this one's leaking. They can leak in several places. They can leak from the actual radiator themselves. The seals can go in the pipes here, and these pipes can also rust away. There are aftermarket kits available to buy, but they are quite expensive. You'll be looking at around 250 plus fitting. So if you have an oil leak from this area on the GT, I would advise you to budget for that. These front radiator support panels can start to rust away. They are quite cheap to get hold of still, so I wouldn't stress too much about that. On the diesel variants, the turbo height pipes can develop holes. They can also, if they're not fitted correctly, rub on this bolt here. And they can also rub on there as well, but you don't see that too often. Again, they're not expensive to replace. You can buy aftermarket parts quite cheaply. I think that is pretty much about it for the underside. Onto the 1.9 diesel engine. They are fairly reliable engines. They do suffer with a few regular problems that you tend to see on a lot of diesels. One being the injectors. Sometimes they can fail. They can also seize into the head, and they can be a little bit troublesome to remove. On this engine, as it's a 2006 car, it does have the swirl flaps on it, and they do tend to suffer from leaking or falling off or just general bad wear really. This one is absolutely cream crackered. It's so bad, in fact I think oil's coming through the holes as well now, so the engine's well and truly in need of replacement in this one. They also suffer from EGR blocking up, but they're easy enough to take off and clean up. The turbo pipes there's 3 of them on this vehicle. The long one is very common for going, along with the top one. There is also another one in there, if you can see it, there you go, that one right in frame there, that can go as well. You'll notice faults with it, you'll be getting whistling from the engine bay. Other problems you can get with it is the top engine mount failing. This one's actually pretty good. But generally, as long as you buy a car which has got full service history and regularly serviced, they are pretty bulletproof engines, and I have seen many engines reach more than 200,000 miles. You can suffer with gearbox problems on these as well. You'll get whining in 3rd and 4th. So when you're test driving it, just make sure that the gearbox is nice and quiet. These engines are quite versatile. You can get them remapped and add quite a lot of brake horsepower to a vehicle. A lot of people fit the tuning boxes like this one on here, but we are having some mechanical running problems on this one, so I have disconnected it. Turbos can be upgraded. You can get a hybrid turbo for them now. I've seen quite a few of these pushing over 200 brake horsepower now, so they are a nice car to have and a nice car to drive. But again, most parts on these GTs are easily obtainable, pretty cheap to buy, new or used. So I'd definitely consider looking for one with the right history. Onto the interiors now. I'll start with the windows. I have mentioned the auto drop, or will mention later on in the video, the auto drop features on the windows. These window switches can be quite temperamental. There's a little ECU built into these, so they aren't unique to the Alfa Romeo GT. The 147 window switches you can use as parts only. You can use these buttons will switch, the fascia will fit, but actually the inside of the switch is totally different. You do suffer with them gumming up. The exterior surface goes all horrible and sticky like this one has, and you'll also find that the window switches, the buttons themselves can break off. But if you buy yourself a spare switch from the passenger side, these buttons are a direct replacement. You do need to be careful when taking this out, because it can fall apart, and there are little bits of plastic inside there which control all the buttons, so do be careful when you're removing that. Window regulators, more so on the driver's side, can snap. They are quite straightforward to fit, but they do require a little bit of setting up. You can buy used window regulators from sort of £50–60 at the moment. Onto the seats. I think one of the best colours for the GT is the red leather with a dark coloured car. It certainly sets everything off with the red door cards as well. You do need to watch out for the cables in the backs of the seats. They do snap, so the seat won't lift forwards, and they are a right pain to change, and you will guaranteed to cut your hands to smithereens on all the sharp metal which is behind the seat. See, this one is broken, but we do have a spare cable for it. The armrest lids can be quite delicate, they can break off, so just make sure that closes nice and it doesn't rattle anywhere. Onto the inside now. The gear selector can sometimes get stiff. What happens is, see this one here, it doesn't return to centre, and that means there's a 5-pound bush on the gearbox which needs changing. It's a very simple job to do. I will do a guide on it when I get a chance to do one. Yeah, those bushes can seize, and it makes gear change very stiff. These dials, some of the earlier versions can go sticky, and the screens inside can sometimes fail. It is fairly straightforward to change them, but once you've changed them, your dash speedo will start to flash. That is just basically because the car knows it's had a new part fitted, and it needs something called the proxy alignment, which needs doing on a computer. So if your dashboard mileage is flashing when you come to view a vehicle, it's probably had something replaced in the car and they haven't done a proxy alignment. It's nothing to worry about. I only charge £20 to do a reset on that. The clips on these can break. This one here can sometimes break, but mainly it's this side of the headrest which breaks. It'll either lose its springness. Yeah, springness is all I can think of at the minute. So it'll keep flopping around. But you can get these for about £30 complete with this side clip here. It is the same on the driver's side too, they also fail. What else? Glove box handles, they can sometimes become floppy, and they are a sealed unit, so you do need to replace the whole unit unless you want to glue the handle back on. But again, these lids are quite easy to change. There's only 6 torque screws holding them on. The radios in these, if you've got the standard one like this, just look at getting it changed. They're not very good radios nowadays, and they are very old-fashioned. You can connect some Bluetooth devices to them and some USB things, but to be honest, for the cost of them, you are better off just pulling it out, buying a fascia adapter, and fitting a modern Sony stereo or something like that. A lot of these vehicles do come, in fact, all of the GTs come equipped with cruise control. If you find that the cruise control isn't working, it is normally a clutch switch on the clutch pedal, which is the reason that stops it from working. The actual switches themselves are fairly bulletproof. Onto the outside of the vehicle now. We'll start with the front wing and work our way around. These wings are unique to the GT, so you can only purchase GT wings to fit to this. They do suffer from rust along here, and this has had another wing at some point and it's not very well fitted, so make sure there's no rust along there, there's no rust along the bottom here, and you will also find rust start to come up here because of stone chips. The other thing you need to watch out for is when these vehicles are taken to garages, they tend to be jacked up on these sills, and they're not jacking points. They are very delicate, and you do find a lot of the time they've been jacked up wrong and crushed. I think you can see a little bit here where it's been jacked up wrong. It's been jacked up here and there's a dent in the sill there, so you need to watch out for those. You do normally find it on 90% of GTs somebody has in the past jacked it up at the wrong point. Oh, all right. Door handles, very flimsy. These are the plastic versions on this particular car. They do metal ones, and these are the more modern plastic ones. The hinge inside there does tend to get seized up and eventually snap, so when you're opening the door you'll give it a good yank and off will come the door handle, and you do have to replace the whole thing if this part of the door handle comes off. If just this end breaks, you can buy just the hinge. They're about £12–13 and about an hour's labour to fit. Exactly the same on the driver's side, they suffer from the same problems as well. The wing mirrors are quite poorly designed and they do tend to seize, so you can't fold them in. This one is okay, so just make sure they work, but it doesn't really matter, but if you do always park in tight spaces you want to make sure that you can fold those in out of the way. The windows have an auto drop function when you open the vehicle and close the door. If you see that, the windows will automatically open and drop. Make sure that that's working correctly. You do find that if it isn't working correctly, there is an issue with the door ECU or the window switch itself. Window switches are very expensive and hard to get hold of. They're about £150 for a new switch, and I think the last time I checked it was about £80 for a used switch. Tailgates, you can get squeaking as you're driving along because it is such a large tailgate. A remedy for squeaking tailgates is to just get some silicone spray and just spray it all around the seal along the outside of the tailgate, and that'll normally make it nice and quiet. The rear lights can suffer with hazing, like this one has there. If you can see, it's starting to crack and go bad. Again, they're very easy to replace, and they're only about £30 for a used one. Rear bumper, the rear towing cover can drop out, but again they're readily available and easy enough to change. You can get some problems with the fuel opening. There is a button on the dashboard or on the centre console, depending on which version of the car you have, and you can find that there's a little solenoid in here and that can stop working. There is normally an emergency release switch in here, which is a red pull button. Again, driver's side door handle, they are a common problem as well. And this wing mirror, there we go, that's what I'm at. This one's seized up, so that's not coming out very easily. There's lots of different versions of alloy wheels on GTs. The cloverleaf wheels, the blackline wheels, they're all 18-inch form, and they do tend to bend quite easily. So make sure that the vehicle drives straight and true, and there's no vibrations coming from the vehicle sort of above 50 miles an hour. And I think, the last thing I want to tell you about is the wiper arms and the wiper linkage. A lot of them, they do seize on to the linkage, and when you're trying to change your wipers, or you're trying to get the wiper linkage out for some reason, or just to get this to the scuttle panel, a lot of people are grabbing them and trying to undoing the bolt here and then waggling them, and it's breaking the wiper linkage. This one is a little loose, as you can see down there. It's plastic which goes into metal, and they very easily snap, so you do need a nice wiper linkage removal tool, and they come off nice and easily then. Back round to the front. Front grills are very common for falling out. You do see a lot of threads on the forum saying, oh, my grill's been stolen. Normally they've just fallen out. The little clips which hold them on are made of metal, and they do rust, and eventually they start to rust away one by one, and then they will eventually fall out. These have got the more desirable blackline chrome strips on the grille, and they are quite expensive to replace. I think Alfa want nearly £100 per grille. Used, you can pick them up from £30 upwards. These little side grills here, they can fall out as well, but that's not as often, and they are a lot cheaper to replace. You can get those from sort of £10 now. Front and rear badges, the Alfa logo does tend to fade quite a lot, but again, it's not an expensive job to replace those, so you can get the badges on eBay from sort of £4 onwards now. Headlight side light bulbs, they do tend to go quite often, especially if you fit cheap bulbs or LED bulbs. The electrical system in this doesn't like them a lot of the time, so you do need to get a good quality standard bulb in the GTs. They're also, the side light bulb is a proper pain in the backside to change. It's just in there, in that, if you can see that just there, and there is a little tab which you pull to get them out, and unless you know what you're doing, you can snap the tab off, or 9 times out of 10 the tab is also snapped off already. So you have to get a little tool in there to prise it out and change the bulb, and then pop it back in. But a handy hint for when you are replacing these and you've got the bulb out, when the new bulb's on, pop your headlights on so you can see the light of the bulb shining through the hole, and that'll enable you to locate it a bit better. There you go, so that's my buyer's guide on the GT. They are a very nice car, they're a very capable car, they've got a very nice chassis, they're very good at motorway cruising, and you can pick them up quite cheaply nowadays. To say you can pick them up from sort of £800 upwards. I'd say the mark at the moment, you need to be spending around £1,500, £2,000 on a nice example. There are several special editions. There's a Q2 version which gives you a limited slip diff differential. They're normally available in black or white if I remember rightly. You can also get a run out cloverleaf edition and a blackline edition. The two most desirable ones do tend to be the Q2 and the cloverleaf versions. They're just mainly they are the later versions in the car. A few desirable upgrades you can do to these is fit the Q2 differential. That does enable a lot better handling. There are several different engines you can get the GT in. You can get the 1.8 twin spark, the 2 litre JTS, the 1.9 diesel, and the most desirable is the 3.2 V6 Buzo. They are starting to appreciate quite nicely now. You can't really pick a good one up for less than £6,000. There are a few dogs that are floating around still, which need a lot of work. They go from anything from £2,000 to £4,000. But I'd definitely say the most desirable and the most popular, sorry, not desirable, the most popular engine to get is the 1.9. It's purely because you've got sort of 150 breaker standard. Some of the special editions come with 170, and they are mappable, so you can easily get 200 horsepower out of them with no modifications, just the ECU remap. So there you go, thanks for watching. I hope you found it interesting. Please like and subscribe to my channel, because I do all sorts of reviews, guides, and just interesting videos, all Alfa Romeo related. So please watch those and share them with your friends. Thanks a lot for watching, see you soon.